जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी जय यशोदा नंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय व्रज जन रंजन जय यमुना तिरवनचारी जय कुंज विहारी 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री श्री राधा माधव की जय। जगन्नाथ बलस्वरमाई की जय। नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। पंचतत्व की जय। षड गोस्वामी की जय। गुरु परंपरा की जय। श्री गोपाल की जय। श्री गुरुदेव की जय। गौर हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevayam bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna, please, Mata. Yes. Thank you very much. Welcome, all of you. So, we'll just share the screen for the verse, two verses which we should be discussing today. This is third canto. So, first of all, I thank Radha Madhavdas Prabhu for giving this opportunity. So, third canto, 27th chapter, two verses are 26 and 27. This chapter is entitled Understanding the Material Nature. So, first we'll recite the verse and then we'll discuss that. Evam vedita tattvasya prakritiramayi manasam yunjato napakuruta atma ramasya karhichet. Evam vidita tattvasya prakritirmayi manasam yunjato napakuruto Atma Ramasya karhi chet. Evam vidita tattvasya prakritir mai manasam yunjato napakuruto Atma Ramasya karhi chet. Yes, anybody wants to write this, right? Okay.
Hare Krishna, may I?
Yes, Prabhu.
Evam vidita tattvasya prakritirmai manasam yunjato napaguruta atma ramasya karhichi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Any Mataji wanted to say it?
Hare Krishna, may I, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Evam vidita tattvasya prakritirmai manasam yunjato napakuruta atma ramasya karhi chet. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So word to word meaning, synonyms. Evam, thus. Vidita tattvasya, the one who knows the absolute truth. Prakritihi, material nature. Mai, on me. Manasam, the mind. Yunjataha, fixed. Na, not. Apakurute, can do harm. Atma Ramasya, Atma Aramasya, to one who rejoices in the self. Karahichit, at any time. Translation and purpose divine Geshe Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the absolute and his mind is fixed on the supreme personality of Godhead. So please hear the purport. Very nice purport. Read very carefully. Lord Kapila says that Mai Manasam, a devotee whose mind is always fixed upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Atma Rama or Vidita Tattva. Atma Rama means one who rejoices in the self or one who enjoys in the spiritual atmosphere. Atma, in a material sense, means the body or the mind. But when referring to one whose mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Atmarama means one who is fixed in spiritual activities in relationship with the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is a personality of Godhead, and the individual soul is the living entity. When they engage in reciprocation of service and benediction, the living entity is said to be in the Atmarama position. This Atmarama position can be attained by one who knows the truth as it is. The truth is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the enjoyer, and the living entities are meant for his service and enjoyment. One who knows this truth and who tries to engage all resources in the service of the Lord escapes all material reactions and influences influences on the modes of material nature. Very nice example Prabhupada gives. An example may be cited in this connection. Just as a materialist engages in constructing a big skyscraper, a devotee engages in constructing a big temple for Vishnu. Superficially, the skyscraper constructor and the temple constructor are on the same level. For both are collecting wood, stone, iron, and other building materials. But the person who constructs a skyscraper is a materialist. And the person who constructs a temple of Vishnu is Atmarama. The materialist tries to satisfy himself in relation to his body by constructing a skyscraper. But the devotee tries to satisfy the super self, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by constructing the temple. Although both are engaged in the association of material activities, the devotee is liberated and the materialist is conditioned. This is because the devotee who is constructing the temple has fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the non-devotee who is constructing the skyscraper has his mind fixed in sense gratification. If while performing any activity, even in material existence, one's mind is fixed upon the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, one will not be entangled or conditioned. The worker in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is always independent of the influence of material nature. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Let's the next verse, 27. 327. Yadaivam madhyatmaratah kalena bahujanmana सर्वत्र जात वैराग्य ब्रह्म भुवनान् मुनिः यदैवम् अध्यात्मरतः कालेन बहुजन्मना सर्वत्र जात वैराग्य ब्रह्म भुवनान् मुनिः यदैवम् अध्यात्मरतः कालेन बहुजन्मना सर्वत्र जात वैराग्य ब्रह्म भुवनान् मुनिः. Yes, you can try reciting. Any Prabhuji's, Mataji's, go ahead.
May I?
Yes, Mataji.
यतैवमध्यात्मरतः कालेन बहुजन्मना सर्वत्र जातवैराग्य आब्रह्म भुवना मुनिः.
One more person.
यदैवम् अध्यात्मरतः कालेन बहुजन्मना सर्वत्र जात वैराग्य ब्रह्म भुवनान् मुनिः.
Thank you, Guru. Thank you very much. So synonyms, word to word meaning. Yada, when. Evam, thus. Adhyatmaratah, engaged in self-realization. Kalena, for many years. Bahujanmana, for many births. Sarvatra, everywhere. Jata vairagya, detachment is born. Brahma bhuvana, up to Brahmaloka. Munihi, thoughtful person. Translation purpose by Divine Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please hear the translation purport. When a person thus engages in devotional service and self-realization for many, many years and births, he becomes completely reluctant to enjoy any one of the material planets, even up to the highest planet, which is known as Brahmaloka. He becomes fully developed in consciousness. Purport, again, very beautiful purport. Please hear very carefully. Anyone engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as a devotee. So the definition would be right. Anyone engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as a devotee. But there is a distinction between pure devotees and mixed devotees. A mixed devotee engages in devotional service for the spiritual benefit of being eternally engaged in the transcendental abode of the Lord in full bliss and knowledge. So in material existence, when a devotee is not completely purified, he expects material benefit from the Lord in the form of relief from material miseries, or he wants material gain, advancement in knowledge of the relationship between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity, or knowledge as to the real nature of the Supreme Lord. When a person is transcendental to these conditions, he is called a pure devotee. He does not engage himself in the service of the Lord for any material benefit or for understanding of the Supreme Lord. His one interest is that he loves the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he spontaneously engages in satisfying him. The highest example of pure devotional service is that of the gopis in Vrindavan. They are not interested in understanding Krishna, but only in loving him. That platform of love is a pure state of devotional service. Unless one is advanced to this pure state of devotional service, there is a tendency to desire elevation to a higher material position. A mixed devotee may desire to enjoy a comfortable life on another planet with a greater span of life, such as on Brahmaloka. So these are material desires. But because a mixed devotee engages in the service of the Lord, ultimately, after many, many lives of material enjoyment, he undoubtedly develops Krishna consciousness. And the symptom of this Krishna consciousness is that he is no longer interested in any sort of materially elevated life. He does not even aspire to become a personality like Lord Brahma. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnantamrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yonta Pravishya Mavachi Imam Prasuptam, Sanjeev Vayate Kashakti Dharasmadamnam, Kanyam Sahasta Charana Shvamatva Gadin, Rana Namo Bhagavate Prashaya Tubhyam. Mukam Karoti Vacham Pankam Namatam Namo Vishnu 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 Shanti Mahavishnu Swami Salam. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhu Mataji, thank you very much for joining to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and keeping the appointment with Krishna. So, very, very auspicious to hear Bhagavatam. So, it's a very wonderful chapter, which is entitled Understanding Material Nature. The previous chapter was entitled Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. And this is Understanding the Material Nature by Kapil Deva, no, is giving to the questions asked by his mother, Devaki. Devabhuti Mother. See, we should realize the importance of utilizing this rare and valuable gift of devotional service. See how important it is, right? See, we are all very, very fortunate to have been blessed with human birth. Correct. Just let me stop. Yeah, okay, sorry. So with this human birth is very, very auspicious, right? Especially when His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada has very kindly translated the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many other books, all in a language which is understandable by each and everyone. So we all have this golden opportunity to access this treasure house of translated knowledge, correct? So we should make the best use of it by studying these books. But the point to understand is, mere studying alone does not suffice. See, our study of scripture should result in improvement in our behavior. For example, when a building catches fire, and if the security person, he simply reads out the ways of how to extinguish the fire from the manual without actually following the instructions to put out the fire, what will happen? Whole building will burn down to ashes. So similarly, we are sure to suffer if we don't follow these scriptural injunctions. See, scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam and all, they gives us the list of do's and don'ts in life. So when we study them, we should sincerely endeavor to practice the same in our lives. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, verse number 16.23 and 24, Yashastra vidyam utsrajya vartate kamakaratha nasasiddhim avapnoti na sukham na paramgatim tasmat shastram pramanam te karya karya vyavasthito atva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartum viharhasi. See, Krishna already says in Bhagavad Gita, he who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. And there's a very nice verse from the scriptures also, wherein it says, Shastranadityapi bhavanti murkha yastu kriyavan purushassa vidvan suchintitam chaushadamaturanam nanama matrena karotyarogam. Even after studying scriptures, if one fails to abide by scriptural injunctions, if one does not follow the instructions given in the scriptures, then he remains a fool. Just like how simply by thinking of the medicine name, however strong and powerful it may be, we will not be cured of the disease unless we use it. So our goal of life is not to become professional reciters or scholars of Srimad Bhagavatam. We should try to practice Bhagavatam in our lives. Srila Prabhupada, in the introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam, he very nicely says, the person in Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. See, the words of such person Bhagavatas like Prabhupada and Gurus are very potent and very pure also. and even now have a great impact in the life of so many souls, correct? Who have not even seen them. So this is because they practiced what they studied and preached what they practiced. So we must also make a genuine effort to improve our behavior and abide by these scriptures. If we really want to cure our disease, we should try and follow at least one verse from Bhagavatam for the rest of our lives. If not, we are useless. See, in the translation of 3:27-26, we just now read, it says, the influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities. You can see, like all the Maharajas and Gurus, they're all coming. But we feel that they're also just like us. They're also doing the same activities in the material activities. But they're totally different. In the purport, Prabhupada gives an example, right? Example he gave of the materialist who is constructing a big skyscraper and a devotee engaging in constructing a big temple for Vishnu. Correct? So superficially, he says, both seems to be the same level because they are collecting for materials, building materials, wood, stone, everything. For both, it is the same. So the person who constructs a skyscraper is a materialist. And the person who constructs a temple for Vishnu is an Atma Rama, he says, Prabhupada says. And he says the materialist, because this materialist, the devotee tries to satisfy the Supreme Person of Godhead. So although both are engaged in the association of material activities, the devotee is liberated and the materialist is conditioned. This is because the devotee who is constructing a temple, he has his mind fixed on Krishna. But the non-devotee is constructing for his mind is already fixed in sense gratification. So while performing any activity, Prabhupada says in the purport, even in material existence, one's mind is fixed upon the lotus feet. When you are doing anything, but your mind if is fixed in the lotus feet of Krishna, then you will not be entangled or conditioned. That's why the worker in devotional service who is in full Krishna consciousness is always independent of the influence of material nature. Material nature will never influence him. So in the journey of self-discovery, in the first chapter, I think, Prabhupada says, activities in the nature. See, though the spirit soul is eternal, right? Activities performed under the influence of material nature are temporary. So the Krishna conscious movement aims at placing the spirit soul in his eternal activities. So we can practice eternal activities even when we are we are also materially engaged also. So to act spiritually simply requires direction. But it is possible under the prescribed rules and regulations. So the Krishna conscious movement teaches these spiritual activities. And if one is trained in such spiritual activities, one is transferred to the spiritual world, of which we can get the ample evidence from Vedic literatures, right? Including Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So the spiritually trained person can be transferred to the spiritual world easily, just by change of consciousness. See, consciousness is always present because it is a symptom of the living spirit soul. But at the present moment, our consciousness is materially contaminated. For instance, see, water which is pouring down from a cloud, coming from the cloud, is very pure. But as soon as the water comes in touch with the earth, it becomes muddy immediately. Yet, if we filter the same water, then the original clarity, can be regained. So similarly, Krishna consciousness is this process of clearing our consciousness. So as soon as our consciousness is clear and pure, we are eligible to be for our eternal life of knowledge and bliss. Satchitananda Vira Krishna is there. So this is what we are hankering for in this material world. But we are being frustrated at every step on account of material contamination. So therefore, this Krishna conscious movement should be taken very seriously by everybody, especially the leaders of human society. See, in the purport of 11th canto, 11th chapter, 11th verse, 11. Uddhava asked Krishna, why an enlightened person, just like a conditioned soul, engages in external bodily functions? Right question. We also see all these. They are also engaging, like Maharaj, pure devotees are engaging in the mental activities also. So Krishna answers, will engage in bodily functions. An unintelligent person is attached to both the means and end of, therefore experiences intense lamentation and jubilation on the mental platform. Whereas a self-realized soul, no, he studies that inevitable defeat is there and suffering of ordinary persons. He looks at that and does not make that same mistake of trying to enjoy the bodily functions. Whereas he instead remains a detached witness, merely engaged in senses the normal functions of bodily maintenance, minimum requirement. So he engages something other than his actual, his material, he doesn't engage into the material existence. Activities, actually, only spiritual activities. Similarly, in the 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 41st verse, purport, Prabhupada says, to act helplessly. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Helplessly we are acting. So no one can refrain from doing something, okay, not even for a moment. This is in Bhagavad Gita, you can see this verse. Since the living entity cannot remain inactive, he must learn to dedicate his activities to the Lord. So Prabhupada comments on this verse from Bhagavad Gita. It is not a question of embodied life, but it is nature of the soul to be always active. See, without the presence of the spirit soul, no, the material body cannot move. Okay. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, and which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. So, as such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by the illusory energy. So, in contact with the material energy, no, the spirit soul acquires material modes. And to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties which is enjoined in the Shastras. But if the soul is engaged in its natural function of Krishna consciousness, natural function, whatever he is able to do is good for him. See, ordinary in the busy activities of the devotees of Krishna conscious movement, they say they are doing this thing, chanting. So they mistake such activities to be ordinary material work. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he has stated in this connection, one should give up selfish activities performed for one's personal sense gratification, since the result of such thoughtless, he says, thoughtless work is further material bondage. But one should offer one's regular or occasional occupational duties to the Supreme Lord. And thus such activities become transcendental devotional service. See, by the words, Tasma Gurum Prapadyeta, Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. There is 11th canto, 11th chapter. This chapter is clearly explained that is an art. Totaling one's work to the service of the Lord is an art one should learn at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. Otherwise, if one whimsically declares that his material work to be transcendental devotional service, there will be no actual result. Therefore, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, one should not mistake the word Naishkarmyam to indicate inactivity. Rather, it indicates transcendental activity under the guidance of the Lord and his representative. See, in the 27th, today we are reciting two verses, right? 3, 27, 26, and 27. So, the 27th translation, Prabhupada says, thus engages in devotional service and self-realization for many, many years and births. He becomes completely reluctant to enjoy any one of the material planets also, even up to the highest planet, which is known as Brahmaloka. He doesn't want that also. That's why in purport of Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter, 55th verse, the word Mat Parama refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme mode to be the highest perfection of life. See, such a person, no, he does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets, such as the moon or sun or even heavenly planets. Or even the highest planet, like universe in the universe, like Brahmaloka also. He has no attraction for that. the spiritual sky. And even in the spiritual sky, he's not satisfied with merging into the glowing Brahmajyoti also. Therefore, he does not know, he doesn't, because he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely Krishna Loka, Golaka Vrindavan. He has full knowledge of that planet. Therefore, he is not interested in any other. See, the word Bhaktaha means he fully engages in devotional service, specifically in the 9 processes of devotional engagement: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with him, surrendering everything to him, right? Sharanam Kirtan Vishnu, right? So one can engage in all the devotional services, or 8 or 7, or at least 1. And that will surely make one perfect. That's why in Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, 11th verse, purport, Prabhupada says, due to the contamination of material association, through many, many millions of births, not just this one, through millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When one constantly chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the dust quickly clears. And then one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. See, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chanting and by devotional service, and not by mental speculation. So the pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord. Because the Lord is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. So this is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. And what happens then? The Lord takes charge. So one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. So this is how. But the main difficulty is, is envy. Because of the envy only, we are still struggling in this material world. That's why we came into the material world also, because we are envious of Krishna. See, there are 4 types of envy, which is very much prevalent among us. And this is one of the main reasons for our devotional creeper not growing towards the Lord. See, Prabhupada writes in his various purports that devotional service has to be watered by the process of hearing and chanting, Shravanam and Kirtanam. And while doing so, there can be so many weeds, right? Weeds which will also grow along with the creeper. And it needs to be taken out fully. Otherwise, our devotional creeper growth is reduced, stunted, right? So the foremost reason for conditioned life and devotional creeper being stunted by growth is very nicely given by Prabhupada in his purport of in this chapter only, 20th verse, 327-20. He says, everyone desires to be the greatest personality in this material world. Everyone desires. Dvesha means envy. See, when one becomes envious of Krishna, forget about all the others here. When one becomes envious of Krishna, all Supreme Personality Godhead, one thinks, why should Krishna be all in all? I am also as good as Krishna. These 2 items, desire to be the Lord and envy of the Lord, are the beginning cause of our material bondage. See, there are 4 different levels of envy. Bhagavatam 3:32, 39, 40, 41, 42. These 4 verses it gives. There are 4. Khala, Dvesha, Asuya, Matsara. Now, Khala, this envy is such that the living entity plans and executes the destruction of other living entities. Then second is Dvesha. This envy is very dangerous. It affects our blood circulation. Basically, we tend to hate the living entity, completely hate, and create enmity for them in our minds. That is Dvesha. Then third is Asuya. This envy is subtle. It's not very good. It's subtle envy. So this envy makes the living entity to find faults with others always. This envy bites everyone without discrimination, like the Matsara means mosquito. So this is total envy. So these 4 types of envy can be remembered with an acronym PEST, P-E-S-T. Color, wherein plans and executes destruction, right? Plans. Dvesha creates enmity. Asuya, subtle envy. So P-E-S and Matsara, total envy. So plans and executes destruction, plans. Then it creates enmity. Then Asuya, subtle envy and total envy. Can we remember that? See, the word pest means what? A destructive animal that attacks crops, food, or livestock. Or a person or thing that is extremely annoying. Naturally become a source of annoyance for them. Our devotional creeper is like a crop. And we need to cultivate them nicely. Grow them up with chanting and hearing. But it is immediately destroyed by this dangerous pest called envy. If you carefully look at ourselves, see, all these types of envy exists within us in spite of so many years of devotional service. It varies from one living entity to another, okay? But it exists. And we cannot deny at any point of life. The Guru Maharaj says, constitutionally we are envious. And to change that requires tremendous effort. Even if we remove them, the subtle envy always flows inside us. And again, we think that I am a devotee and I am not envious. That also is not. I am a devotee and I am not envious. There also it's subtle. See, just like we use pesticide, pesticide to kill the pest. We should use the pesticide to remove the subtle and deep-rooted envy from the core of our heart. Even though we may remove it, it will crop up again. Therefore, it is imperative to apply this pesticide constantly and regularly to avoid the PESTICIDE. Okay. P. Perceiving the temporary nature of the material world and everything seen around us. Perceiving. E. Eagerness to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. S. Stopping of sense gratification. T. Time to be used cautiously in studying and contemplating on scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, which will eliminate our thinking process for planned envy. Then it will remove. I. Introspectiveness in our dealings with others, especially envy is generated within us, right? C. Constantly strive for rectifying our envious nature, always by sincere chanting and service. I. Identify the value of time which is passing away imperceptibly and not waste frivolously in envying others. B. Develop a sense of belonging to all fellow beings as being part and parcel of Krishna. And E. Envisioning our death always as we are all condemned to death. So this is pesticide. So let us take the shelter of the supremely merciful the Lord and his devotees and pray for the mercy to remove the deep-rooted pest from our heart, so that our transcendental creeper grows towards the supreme abode without any hindrance. Very, very important to understand, right? See, Kapil Deva, in the 27, in the same chapter, the current chapter, it said 21st verse, he said, Kapil Deva, in reply to the inquiry by his mother Devoti, her inquiry was, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as the material nature is acting on him and binding him? So the material bondage is defined by 2 items. One, Icha, desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. This is the first one. Second is Dvesha, envy. So we become envious by thinking that I want to be like Krishna and what Krishna has, I want. Right? So Icha and Dvesha, desire. What is the desire? To enjoy separately from Krishna. And what is the envy? That I want to be like Krishna and what Krishna has, I also want. I want. So these 2, the reasons for bondage. Prabhupada makes it very clear that we should not blame the material nature, because it is not the fault of the material nature that we are in bondage. He writes in the purport, conditional life begins only after one is infected by the modes of material nature. If someone is in contact with the police department, okay, somebody is in contact with the police department, that does not mean that he is a criminal. As long as one does not commit criminal acts, though there is a police department, He is not punished. Similarly, the liberated soul is not affected, although he is in the material nature. What a beautiful explanation by Prabhupada in the purport. 320, this current verse, 27, 21st verse. The reason we feel the bondage is because in our actually we are not putting it into practice. The real test is, what is the real test? Ask yourself 5 years before how you were studying Bhagavatam. And 5 years later, how are you studying Bhagavatam? Is there any improvement? Is there any increase in the fabric of your behavior? If there is nothing, then your study is theoretical. If there is something, then we should feel encouraged that we are in the right track. The other symptom of whether we are infected material nature is to check if we are agitated in our minds. So when agitation is there, that means material infection is going on. So the only antiseptic to that is to do serious devotional service, as Lord Kapil Deva recommends in this verse. See, liberation is not our goal of existence. And this point should be clear. But liberation is a byproduct of devotional service. Defines liberation as remaining fixed on the transcendental platform is liberation. Remaining fixed in the transcendental platform is liberation from material entanglement. So it doesn't mean that we are flying out of the material world. Liberation means not flying out of the material world. It means we are fixed on the transcendental platform, transcending the modes. Excuse me. Only if we are on the platform, transcendental platform, we are not infected by material nature. The way to come out of that is explained in 5 heads. One is serious discharge of devotional service. Tivraya Mai Bhaktya. Serious discharge of devotional service. Second is not to desire the fruits of activities. Animitta Nimetan. Third is performance of prescribed duties for the pleasure of the Lord. Swadharmena. 4, hearing for a long time about the Lord. Shruta Samrittaya Chiham. And 5 is having a pure mind. Amalatmana. So in this 21st verse, these are 5 things. Way to come to that transcendental platform. Serious discharge of devotional service, not to desire the fruits of activities, performance of prescribed duties for the pleasure of the Lord, hearing for a long time about the Lord, and having a pure mind. So how to do serious discharge? No? Serious discharge of devotional service means we put us and regularly perform devotional service to Lord Krishna. It is not that today I feel like offering nice bhoga to the deities and I offer. And tomorrow I feel like fasting and deities must also fast. So performing regulated devotional service may not be very palatable in the beginning, okay? But because Krishna is so kind and is pure, we will become purified provided we are convinced that we do not want to do devotional service based on ichcha or desire. Then it becomes capricious. The word capricious is very nice. Capricious devotional service means as and when I want, I will do. Or I desire something from the Lord. Only when I desire something, I will do. That is capricious devotional service. The desire is not dovetail for Krishna's satisfaction, but for our satisfaction. So when we have that mood, no, that is a barrier which prevents a devotee from developing further in devotional service. Serious discharge also means we should be very, very serious to offer what we have for Krishna, and this is done by daily resigning. How do we daily resign and thus not desire the fruitive activities? So not to desire the fruitive activities. There is a beautiful verse, Bhagavad Gita 5.10. Krishna says, Brahmani adai karmani sangam tyaktva karotiyah lipyatena sapapena padmapatram imambasa. One who performs his duty without attachment in Lord is unaffected by sinful action as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Prabhupada gives word-to-word equivalent of adhaya as resigning. If we resign ourselves by giving up the attachment for the fruits of the work, then our sins are completely washed off. So the comparison is given to that of the lotus flower. See, the speciality of lotus flower is that even though it grows in the middle of the mine, the mud, the flower is very beautiful and there is not even a drop of mud on it. And when droplets of water fall on the lotus flower, the skin is so waterproof that the water just skims, the surface and falls back into the water. Now, Guru Maya uses this point to tell us that if you ever want to remember how to live in this world, you have to remember the lotus flower and this verse. Do your work, and immediately after you finish your work, resign. Of course, you do not have to factually resign from your job, okay? But resign in your heart. We have projects to finish and targets to achieve. The moment the target is achieved, at that point of time, we tender our resignation from that job. So we tender it in our heart, saying, Krishna, I have done the job. Now the result is entirely up to you. When we live that way, then we can perform our duties without attachment. Just like the same way, daily we have to initiate ourselves in the devotional service, in the devotional processes. Daily we have to resign from the work when work is finished. Then we come to the stage of animitta nimetya, without desiring the fruits of activities. So the fruits will always come when they're engaged in Krishna's service. So this way, matter is not infecting us. Even though we are living amidst matter, we are not affected. Daily we are resigning and we are free. So when the pay comes, we give some Lakshmi to Krishna, either for temple projects or for Krishna conscious programs, and all this is resigning. Once there is resignation, then animitta nimetya becomes very natural. The key point we must know is how to come to this platform. That is by performing prescribed duties. Swadharmena, for the pleasure of. Third we saw is performing prescribed duties for the pleasure of the Lord. Swadharmena, right? So Prabhupada writes in the purport, in discharging Krishna conscious duties, one should determine whether by this professional or occupational duties, Krishna's Supreme Personality Godhead is pleased, whether he is pleased or not. And in Bhagavatam 1:2:13, he says, Swanishtustasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. Everyone has some prescribed duties to perform. But the perfection of such duties will be reached only if the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is satisfied by such actions. For example, Arjuna's prescribed duty was to fight. The perfection of his fighting was tested by the satisfaction of Krishna. Krishna wanted him to fight. And when he fought for the satisfaction of Krishna, that was the perfection of his professional devotional duty. Professional devotional duty. See, on the other hand, when contrary to the wish of Krishna, he was not willing to fight, that was imperfect. See, the word professional means doing a work perfectly. That also means doing something without putting our heart into it. But in this statement of purport, Prabhupada says, combines professional with devotional. So devotee is a spiritual professional. A father becomes pleased when the child says that, Father, I like all these things, but if you do not like them, I'm not going to do it. Any father feels very happy to hear this from his son. Arranged marriages are so wonderful based on this concept. But the point is, we are subordinate to the desires of our superiors. And therefore, if you take it right to its logical end, to be subordinate to the desires of the Supreme is to be peaceful. So verses in Bhagavad Gita 18.56 to 61 gives a nice way to convince our mind and intelligence why we should put Krishna's desire ahead of us and why we should come to the stage of not desiring the fruitive results. 18.56 to 61. So Krishna says, Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparaha. In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. So the magic word we have to remember is depend on me. So in our lives, we depend on so many other things except the Lord. Now, all those things or people cannot get us out of this problem because they themselves are entangled. So Krishna is asking us to work under his protection. And the way to work under his protection is to daily resign. The moment you resign, Krishna takes over. Otherwise, Krishna asks us to go on as with him. In this regard, it's a very nice story. Once there was a devotee and a dog. Okay. A dog came to bite him. So at that point of time, Krishna was having prasadam in Dwaraka. So he immediately stopped eating and stood up. And then again, immediately, he sat down and started eating again. Rukmini Devi asked Krishna the reason for this. What is this? What happened? Krishna said, I stood up because my devotee on the earth is in trouble. The dog was biting and I was ready to go. So Rukmini asked, so why did you not go then? He said that before I could go, this devotee picked up a stone and he wanted to chase away the dog. So Rukmini asked, what is the problem? You go and help him. Krishna said, the moment the devotee picked up the stone, Krishna did not know who the dog was and who the devotee was. Because there is no difference. The meaning is that we are defined by being dependent on Krishna. See, dog's nature is he cannot depend on Krishna. If we do not learn to depend on Krishna, who are we? We are also dogs. So Krishna takes over at the point of our resignation. And when we do our activities based on directions from Krishna, then we are on the right track. So the point on not desiring the fruits of activities and the performance prescribed duties for the pleasure of the Lord of earth is, see, regarding the performance prescribed duties, is reminded by in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14:3. Wonderful translation given by Prabhupada. Lord Brahma said, "No, oh my Lord Krishna, a devotee who abandons the path of empirical philosophical speculation aimed at merging in the existence of the Supreme and engages himself in hearing your glories and activities from a bona fide sadhu or saint, and who lives an honest life in the occupational engagement of his social life, can conquer your sympathy and mercy, even though you are agita or unconquerable." So the first thing is that our mental speculation has got to be abandoned. Whenever we have a thought that has no basis in Srimad Bhagavatam, we must resign from that thought. Do your best and resign daily. That means daily you have a new job. Daily you are signing a new contract. Daily you are resigning from that job. So Prabhupada says in the translation that we should live an honest life in the occupational engagement. Do not leave your prescribed duties. Become expert in your prescribed duties. The more expert you are, the more free time you have. And the hearing a long time, for a long time about the Lord. See, this means that we have to meditate or deliberate on Krishna's instructions. We hear the classes, but we just go on with our lives. An advanced devotee deliberates, and Krishna becomes very happy because the devotee is using his intelligence to deliberate on the Lord and his instructions. So this is serious discharge of devotional service. Long period is just not clocked by how long you are sitting in Bhagavatam class, but it is clocked by how long you are deliberating on the subject matter. The fifth was having a pure mind. If you want to know the state of consciousness of a person, just go to his bathroom or the kitchen or the rooms. The real manifestation of cleanliness is starting from our own rooms or our own shaving kits. See, if our shaving kit is properly organized, it's a very good reflection of how orderly we are and how clean our mind is. No clothes should ever be on the floor. Any dirty dhoti should be folded and very neatly and put aside. My Guru Maharaj is a personification of this. He taught us by throwing the clothes down and is violence. So we should realize that clothes are non-different from Krishna. They are helping to cover ourselves, and our decency is based on the clothing. So when you crumple them or throw them down, you are violent. Taking care of all of them, all of the items of Krishna, is a reflection of the purity and cleanliness of the mind. Any clothing has to be treated lovingly because they are given to us by Krishna. See, when Krishna Prabhupada was walking in London Manor, if any lights in the rooms were on and there was no one in the room, Prabhupada would fire them for wasting Krishna's energy. And Prabhupada also hated the doors being slammed. So the mood of the devotee allowing the slamming of the door is violent. So we must accept each and every item as a part and parcel of Krishna. So this is the point of resigning. Resigning means all that you have is now Krishna's. But to translate that factually becomes very difficult. So this can be done by chanting the holy names of the Lord and acting very practically with what we have with us. Just by glorifying Krishna, our minds are becoming cleansed, Jagat Pavitram. And to practically put into practice, we must ensure that everything around us is very godly because cleanliness is next to godliness. So, see, on our own, it's very difficult to approach the Supreme Pure Krishna. We do this through translation, the via media of spiritual master. Because they are pure representatives of Krishna. They are so kind that they give us the way to come to Krishna's lotus feet. So the best way to come to the transcendental platform is to 100% follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So you have to be very, very careful when we come for bhakti. Are we coming for bhakti because we want to glorify Krishna and put ourselves down, or is there any hidden motive? In the beginning of devotional service, the motive is very gross. It's very easy to see it. But after a few years, when we advance, then what happens is that without realizing it, we become advanced in having our own motives also. We even cheat ourselves by saying that we are coming for glorification of the Lord, but it is glorification of ourselves. We all have different motives. Prabhupada warns in his purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 12.135 that if you want a clean and pure mind, and we want to stop desiring fruiting activities, then we must be prepared to watch out for these characteristics that will come in our hearts. What are they? Number one, fault-finding mentality. Kutinati. The finding fault is not so much to put someone down, but you put yourself up. So Chaitanya, we see that Ramachandra Puri and Ishwar Puri were disciples of Madhavendra Puri. They both were serving Madhavendra Puri up to the last days of his life. Now, towards the end, Madhavendra Puri had great transcendental realizations of Krishna on the basis of feelings of separation. He was always crying out for the Lord. At that time, Ramachandra Puri used to criticize his guru, and thus he was rejected by his spiritual master. Ishwar Puri served the spiritual master only for the satisfaction of the spiritual master, and for this he was given the benediction of becoming the spiritual master of none other than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself. So envy, Jiva Himsa. We are envious of other living entities. That is the reason we are here in the first place, because we started by being envious of the Lord. So the natural byproduct of this, we are envious of everything coming from Krishna. Number one is desire for material gain, kama. This will turn our devotional service into fruitive activity. Then desire for adoration, puja and pratishtha. Claim for name and fame makes our spiritual activity into material activity. Then nishidachara, that is his act of accepting things that are forbidden in the scriptures. So the best shortcut way to come out of all these and remain fixed in transcendental platform is given in 5.5.2 Bhagavatam. Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. Just obey the orders of the spiritual master. Resign your activity and the results at his lotus feet, and he will guide you to the Lord. Simply your existence, right? Simplify your existence. Constantly correct your intentions and initiate yourself in devotional service. It's very important for us to understand, right? So more things to be learned. But I just stop with the purport of 327, where he gives what is pure devotional service. Prabhupada says 327, verse which we are discussing. The highest example of pure devotional service is that of the gopis in Vrindavana. See, they are not interested in understanding Krishna, okay, but only in loving Krishna. So that platform of love is the pure state of devotional service. So we should come to the Krishna Prema, the ultimate. So unless one is advanced into this pure state of devotional service, there is a tendency to desire elevation to a higher material position. A mixed devotee may desire to enjoy comfortable life on another planet, where there is a greater span of life, such as on Brahmaloka. So these are all material desires. But because a mixed devotee engages in the service of the Lord, ultimately, after many lives of material enjoyment, he undoubtedly develops Krishna consciousness. And the symptom of this Krishna consciousness is that he is no longer interested in any sort of materially elevated life. He does not even aspire to become a personality like Lord Brahma. This is a point to understand. So we're all so fortunate to come under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada and hear Bhagavatam and put it into practice. So very useful to learn. So these are wonderful lessons we learned. There are so many things to be told, but time is of an essence. So we'll stop here. Nirantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. If you have any questions or anything to share, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay, if nothing else is there, I can stop. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Take care, be safe.
Anyone has any questions? Haribol, dear devotees. Okay, no questions today. Haribol.
Thank you, Ravati Prabhu, for organizing hosting this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The PEST acronym was very nice, Prabhuji. It was really
PEST.
very nice.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We'll see you all tomorrow for the Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.